quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
House Republicans release a voter ID bill. We'll explore it. A Senate briefing on a possible state income tax structure overhaul, and renewable energy requirements face a possible phase out. Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. Thanks for watching Legislative Week in Review. Let's kick off this show in the House, where Republicans have released their promised voter ID legislation. GOP leaders say they've been listening to the critics, but this bill contains some core elements not open for debate. The House Republicans' voter identification legislation is exactly what they say they promised. It contains a core commitment to require photo-based identification for all state voters beginning January 1st, 2016.
The citizens of North Carolina want some form of voter ID legislation. 3 out of 4 people in the state of North Carolina consistently say that this is something that they believe is appropriate and something that they would like to have that I believe really does restore a level of confidence in voting outcomes.
Beginning 2016, voters arriving at the polls with no ID on them could complete a provisional ballot, then prove their identity at a later date. Voters who own no photographic ID could receive a photo ID from the Division of Motor Vehicles, with low-income residents receiving a free card.
We will cover the cost if they have a financial hardship. So the fee for the card will be waived if they are willing to sign that they have a financial hardship and cannot afford them, as well as any fees for the documents required in order to get the non-operator ID. So we really want to make this possible for people who are having the hardship and cannot get an ID card to be able to get it.
House Republicans say they'll create a statewide team to help voters transition to photo ID protected elections, as well as help voters without photo ID get one.
Not only, like other states, are we going to provide them the ID at no direct cost themselves, we're going to have a proactive outreach to reach these folks and to help them get the ID in their hand.
Democrats counter the GOP with their own voter integrity platform. They propose expanding early voting, online voter registration, allowing state workers paid leave to be elections workers, and call for felony charges for anyone who interferes with another person's voter registration. They say Republican efforts to create a, quote, customer service-oriented government should extend to efficient elections.
If we're concerned about double billing on the expressway, if we're concerned about long lines at DMV, then why aren't we concerned about the most important thing? How about these lines at the polling place, which the efforts of the Republicans are going to do?
The Democrats' elections integrity bill sits in the House Rules Committee that's chaired by Representative Tim Moore. Representative Moore did not address the Democrats' proposals, but announced another public hearing on the Republican voter ID bill.
There's going to be a public hearing next Wednesday in the House Elections Committee. It's expected that the bill would most likely be voted upon in committee on April the 17th.
The public debate weeks ago on voter ID featured no legislation anyone could see, but the next hearing, scheduled for next week, does have a bill involved, will involve the public, and lawmakers are expected to cast some early votes. Representative Tom Murray is a primary sponsor of voter ID legislation. Thanks for being on the show. Your House Speaker, Tom Tillis, says this one should hold up to court scrutiny. Are you anticipating some courtroom action on this if you pass it?
I would expect litigation, but I would also expect successful litigation on our side, because we have carefully crafted this legislation with input and looking at what other states have done that have passed muster as well. And I think we've done a good job to bring a balanced solution to something that 75% of voters in North Carolina agree with.
You've had a public hearing, 2 days of those, with one coming up next week scheduled, as Tim Moore has said. What's the purpose of the public hearing when you've made clear throughout all the campaigns past that you knew what you wanted to do with voter ID?
Well, now we've got a bill for them to talk about. And so instead of just talking in the abstract on concepts about voter ID, now we have an actual bill that they're going to be able to look at and comment on and improve it through the process. And that's what I expect. And that's how you do good legislation. And that's why we're having that public hearing this week.
Have you found any of the critics have tried to work with you to morph the bill to make it more acceptable, or do you see that it's galvanized? Either you're for this or you're against it, no matter the terms.
I've had several conversations with groups and organizations and people that represent them that say, we are going to ideologically oppose this legislation. Here are some ideas that you might want to include to improve the legislation, even though we're going to be ideologically opposed. That's a good conversation to have, and I'm willing to have those conversations to make sure we're getting the policy right, even though I know ideologically they're going to oppose us, and they're going to be in the minority when they do that.
I'm not in the business of counting votes, but with the supermajority in both houses and a governor who wants voter ID, let's just assume voter ID is on a safe track. There's no filibuster or anything of that nature. It becomes law under this bill. I go to the precinct to vote. Is there someone at the door checking my ID like you're going to a nightclub, or do you go up, say your name, declare as you do, and then show your ID? How does this process play out?
That would be, the only thing we're changing to the current process. You would go in, say your name, they would do an address verification, and then they would ask for your photo ID at the polling location. And so we're just adding the photo ID presentation requirement to the existing process on how you go vote right now.
What happens if somebody shows up there and they either throw an ID that looks suspicious, or they say, oh, I forgot my wallet, it's in the car? What do you do then?
They can vote a provisional ballot if the ID doesn't bear a reasonable resemblance to the voter. The process from that point involves the chief judge. There's a chief judge at every precinct, and there is a determination, and it has to be unanimous, and we want to construe it in the light most favorable to the voter. We don't want to take that voter's franchise away on spurious disputes on whether that picture looks exactly like you. I'm sure you might have changed a little bit since your picture might have been taken, even though you're still a very handsome man.
Maybe if I've lost weight or something.
That's right, or a beard or those kind of things. But it's going to be construed in a light most favorable to the voter, and and there is a process at the precinct to do that.
How will this affect voter turnout, the ability of someone to vote? Have you looked at any numbers? Will it be drastic? Will there be any effect at all?
I think the best state to look at is Georgia. Georgia has the most similar demographics to the state of North Carolina, both from minorities and just from an overall total population, voter population. And their minority turnout has increased all the way up through 2012. So it's every presidential year and every off-year election, minority percentage has increased post-voter photo ID. And so I think we can experience similar results, and I don't think anybody's franchise is going to be taken away, but we are going to improve integrity while we're doing this.
Representative Tom Murray, Wake County, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to have you.
A bipartisan group of senators say they are closing in on a state income tax overhaul plan. The challenge is changing the tax structure without raising tax revenue or starving the state government. The Senate received its first official briefing on possible tax reform legislation that key sponsors freely admit is still a work in progress.
The basic principles involved are broadening, flattening, decoupling, and simplifying. It's that simple. In all forms, in doing it, we have this proposal lowers all major tax rates. All major tax rates. It does extend to some services, but not a lot of services.
The tax overhaul would flatten personal income tax rates at 6% for all earners, but a person's first $11,000 in income would not be taxed. Most deductions and tax credits, they would be eliminated. Nearly 200,000 current tax filers would have no need to file a state tax return. The state sales tax would be set at 4.5%.
We think the system that is generated out of this bill would be more stable in terms of the year-to-year impact on revenue of the state. It would not be as volatile as the current system is, with high peaks and deep valleys.
Corporations would also pay a flat 6% income tax rate, the same as personal income taxes. Annual reporting fees and most special tax credits would be allowed to expire. Special taxes on electricity consumption and production would be dropped in favor of applying the standard sales tax.
In North Carolina, we have both an excise tax on the electricity provider and a sales tax on the electricity consumer. That's an ancient sort of system. The franchise tax is 3.22%. The sales tax is 3%. We would eliminate that franchise tax. It just really serves no useful purpose anymore, and electricity would be taxed under the general sales tax rate just the same as is propane, heating oil, and other forms of energy.
This version of Senate tax reform would expand the sales tax base to include nearly 3 dozen services not currently taxed. Repairs, maintenance, alterations, cleaning, even installations would be sales taxed, as would extermination services and most landscaping jobs. The goal is to make our state less reliant on income taxes. Income tax revenues, they boom in good economies and tank in bad ones, but sales tax revenues don't seem to rise or dip as much.
I don't know until we get back to close to where we were in 1979 and the 48 to 50% of our revenue being coming from our sales tax, that we're going to be able to make this system whole and have true reform.
Overall, the bottom 80% of taxpayers would see a slight tax increase on average, while the top 1% would get a tax cut. This is primarily because the plan relies on a broader sales tax base to make up for the revenue lost from the personal and corporate income tax changes.
Local governments share in some state taxes and fees. The bill would force the state to share more of its revenue collections while allowing local sales taxes to apply to any of the new services that would be state taxed. The state would split the food sales tax with local governments as well.
The bill does not propose to increase the sales tax on food. It does not propose that. It proposes, however, that the current 2 cents will be split, half to the state and half to local governments. We did that, quite frankly, again, to keep the state in balance and the local governments from achieving a windfall while the state had a hole at the bottom line.
This week only offered an overview and a discussion, but a tax reform bill, after 2 months of being promised, is officially on the table. The Senate's Republican supermajority took a major step this week to ending what it's been calling a de facto moratorium on state executions. One piece of legislation repeals the Racial Justice Act and protects doctors who assist the state with a lethal injection. It's been nearly 7 years since North Carolina last executed someone. For anti-capital punishment groups, that's progress. For pro-capital punishment legislators, it's a call for change.
This is due to a slew of legal challenges that have resulted in a de facto moratorium on the death penalty in our state, which is the law of the land.
Death penalty supporters say the Racial Justice Act and state medical board threats towards doctors engaging in executions have essentially frozen the capital punishment process, and that process is state law, if not utilized currently. Senate legislation, which the House will consider next, prevents doctors from being professionally sanctioned if they assist the state in an execution. It also limits condemned inmate appeals on the basis of racial bias, which supporters say is being abused to prevent justice. But opponents believe race is a contributing factor in death sentencing.
There's been a systematic exclusion of African Americans from serving on juries in death penalty cases. We know that if you are African American and you're a part of that potential jury pool, that prosecutors in this state have basically decided that they don't want you on a jury.
In one case tried last year, the district attorney's notes from a capital trial were found with explicit comments about the potential juror's race.
New Hanover County Senator Tom Goolsbee stood alone in vocally debating his side of his bill, but the GOP supermajority rallied behind him and the capital punishment legislation, sending it to the House for its next consideration. House legislation could end state mandates that electricity producers purchase required amounts of renewable energy. Supporters say these mandates spike power bills to boost private companies' bottom line. Others say power companies have a monopoly in North Carolina, so state policy is essential to support renewables. Rutherford County Representative Mike Hager proposes repealing many of the mandates that require power companies to buy or produce renewable energy, while lifting the taxes ratepayers pay to subsidize that effort.
There's no end date on it. It goes to 12.5% by 2021, and guess what? It doesn't stop. Yeah, it may stop the moving up to 12.5%, but you don't stop paying for it.
The Hager bill targets the renewable energy portfolio standards. Those require state electricity makers to buy specifically sourced renewable energy like solar, wind, or animal waste produced power. The Hager bill would end the requirement that power companies buy solar and wind while protecting animal waste plants, which he says still need time to mature as technologies. But farmers came out to testify, some saying they want to keep the portfolio standards as is.
The pork industry in North Carolina produces more than 3 billion standard cubic feet of methane per year. If we could only use half of that, we could furnish electricity for more than 3,200 homes.
The proposal would allow power companies to purchase hydroelectric power and have it count towards their renewable energy goals. Solar industry representatives say their sector would be decimated.
If this bill were to pass, it would send a very strong message to the investment community that North Carolina is no longer open for business for solar energy, and we would be unable to find those investors and bring them into the state. That is our biggest concern.
But those who want to see renewable energy standards lifted say ratepayers are the ones funding an industry that can't stand on its own in a private market.
That the renewable mandate's poor record serves as a warning to states that assume that government can create sufficient incentives for renewable technologies. Renewable energy goals are rarely met, energy prices increase dramatically, and massive subsidies are required for jobs and operations of these facilities.
And they'll only continue to grow if we continue to subsidize them as a government. If our folks keep paying the extra rates, if they keep paying the tax, they keep paying their things, then they'll keep getting subsidized.
But those who want to keep the standards say you cannot debate free market considerations. That's because North Carolina electricity makers operate as regulated utilities, a form of monopoly, and it's state law that creates a market for renewables.
The first true and real choice that you have to make is, are you for moving toward more market competition, which is what we have today because of the reps? Or are you for going back to a full monopoly?
The House committee vote this week on this bill was a razor-close 11-10, with the bill facing 3 more House committees before it reaches a full House debate. Federal law prevents criminal fugitives from receiving welfare benefits. Some House members say social workers aren't checking applicants' backgrounds very deeply, and they believe that's creating a loophole where people facing arrest are being qualified for social services. Their answer is letting social services workers cooperate directly with local police. Probation violators and criminal fugitives are never supposed to qualify for social services or welfare benefits like food stamps. That doesn't mean they don't. Union County Republican Representative Dean Arp says local social services workers got in some big trouble with state authorities because they reported to police that a benefits applicant's background check had revealed an unserved arrest warrant.
The state contacted county officials and said if an outstanding arrest warrant is noted, a local caseworker cannot act on the information as it does not relate to eligibility determination.
Representative Arp's legislation would remove a communications firewall between local county social services departments and local law enforcement authorities. Social services workers would be required to check the backgrounds of all benefits applicants and tell police if the applicant has an outstanding warrant. But a few Democrats are skeptical of this broad and disqualifying proposal. They say it's easy to obtain an arrest warrant, especially frivolous ones.
If I know your name, if I know your address, I can get the magistrate to issue an arrest warrant for you with little to no evidence.
The bill would require applicants to be told their once confidential information could be shared with police if an outstanding arrest warrant is pending. Its supporters say fugitives aren't supposed to receive benefits until they answer to justice, so creating a new reporting mandate simply follows federal guidelines.
In that sense, it makes sense that we should facilitate the ability for these two departments to talk to each other. And a background check seems to me to be a reasonable thing for us to ask people to do when they're applying for public benefits.
Some representatives of county-level social services department directors offered worries over costs in this cost-cutting political environment. There was no answer to their question of who pays for the potential and future background checks.
There's going to be a cost for all of these criminal records checks. And who's going to be paying for it? I mean, you know, do the directors of social services in the counties automatically take this and eat it.
Supporters of allowing communication between social services departments and local law enforcement authorities say this will save money and increase efficiency statewide. But that counter-argument is out there, suggesting an expanded bureaucracy might be needed that would consume any potential savings. The bill heads to the Senate. The full House has approved a new letter grading plan for public school campuses. Parents could receive a report card on their kid's school. Student test scores in reading, math, and science would gauge elementary school effectiveness. High schools would be graded on those scores, plus four-year graduation rates and worker readiness. The Senate hears the bill next. The full Senate is poised to consider if North Carolina charter schools need an independent state board of education. Some Republicans say traditional state public education leaders and new charter school leaders have not been collaborating as hoped. The legislation that would give charter school leaders their own version of a state board of education kept moving through the Senate this week. The board would be appointed, and it would essentially be off limits to the current state board of education.
The charter school board would have the sole responsibility of reviewing all applicants. It would be clean, set forth. Any policy or decision that they make could be overridden by the state board of education by a 3/4 vote. Other than that, that's the end of it. It doesn't go through 4 or 5 hands and 2 or 3 approval processes.
Charter schools, in principle, have bipartisan support with campuses opening up across North Carolina. They are public schools but don't operate with the bureaucratic strings that are often attached to traditional public schools. But the creation of a near-independent state charter school board goes too far for some lawmakers, especially Democrats who say this is just another way for Republicans to give themselves more clout.
What it does is just divides public versus private, gives charter schools the unfair advantage that public schools don't have, and it just relives the old debate that we had 2 or 3 years ago in reference to the proper role for charter schools. And I'm a charter school advocate. I've always supported them, but this bill is just yet another power grab.
The end result is what Senator Jerry Tillman is calling a clean bill. It reforms how charter schools do business, streamlines the process, and protects charters as so-called laboratories for traditional public schools.
Therefore, let's create a charter board that will look to their needs and have a sole attention on the needs of charter schools. And let's have them share ideas with the state board, and let's have the state board with the public school ideas that are good be shared with the charters. That's what we wanted from the beginning. We haven't had that over the last 8 or 10 years.
The House takes steps to ensure convicted drunk drivers stay completely sober when they reinstate their driver's licenses. Drivers with multiple DWIs or certain alcohol and driving convictions have a zero-tolerance restriction on future driver's licenses. Current state law allows drivers convicted of 1 DWI to drive if their blood alcohol level is below .04.
When they get their license back, they're given a restriction on that license, just like to wear eyeglasses or contacts. The restriction basically says, hey, you can still drink and drive, just don't drink as much. Instead of don't go over .08, now you're under a .04 limit. I think that's the wrong message as a policy to send.
The House and the Senate agree that drug users should not be afraid to call 911 to report an overdose. Drug users could seek assistance, and authorities could not note evidence of drugs considered in levels of recreational amounts. Underage drinkers could seek alcohol poisoning assistance and not face charges. Supporters say saving lives trumps making an arrest in these limited cases. Some House Republicans want tighter restrictions on state highway trust funds. Representative Charles Jeter says excess highway trust funds should be spent on our roads, not on other, quote, urgent needs that can mean non-road projects, even bureaucracy.
The highway fund is funded primarily through motor fuels tax, highway use funds, and other situations where I believe we've made a covenant with our residents to say we're going to tax your use of cars, gasoline, and in return we're going to make sure we spend that money back on allowing the road projects and the roads and the car usage process to become better in our state.
The House is discussing that Senate bill that would place the Charlotte Douglas International Airport under a multi-county regional airport authority. The airport is one of the world's biggest, and lawmakers say it's time to give the entire region a voice in running it. The Senate took action 2 weeks ago to relieve Charlotte city leaders of their active management of the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. The House began a slower paced discussion this week of that very same move and the creation of a new regional airport authority that would manage all airport assets.
The new board for a regional facility would be appointed by both the government of the City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, also by the county commissions of the adjacent counties, with additional appointments are being envisioned by the Speaker of the House, Speaker Pro Tem, and the Governor.
The Charlotte Airport is currently managed under a structure much like you would see in a city department, but many legislators believe Charlotte's growth and the growth of the surrounding counties require a change in airport leadership. But some Mecklenburg County Democrats have questions about the finer details, including how a transfer of power would affect airport workers.
How are they to be transferred? Are they going to remain within the city purview for their retirement, for their benefits?
Supporters of changing airport leadership say city-operated airports are often managed to the benefit of the city and not necessarily a surrounding region, and they believe Charlotte Douglas's influence is now regional.
The intent is to have a less politicized governance body with a mandate through legislation to ensure a professional management of the airport, with the intent of preserving it as a major airport transportation hub, both for the motion of passengers and the motion of freight, and thereby continue the growth of this area.
With the House Commerce Committee still holding this bill, the Senate is on the record. It will back the creation of a new airport authority. Charlotte Douglas International Airport is the world's 6th largest in terms of airport activity. 38 million passengers used it in 2011, 7 major airlines serve it, and 127,000 tons of freight came into and flew out of Charlotte Douglas. Find us online this weekend. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/legweek. If you tweet, follow us on Twitter. Our name is @LegWeekInReview, and email is a wonderful way to reach myself or any member of the team, legweek@unctv.org. Thank you so much for watching.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.